The following program is a presentation of the Civil War Broadcasting Network, available on the free YouTube channel General Grant by himself or Dr. E.C. Fields. On the Facebook, Kurt Fields as General Ulysses S. Grant, and on various other social media. The website is generalgrantbyhimself.com. This program is one of those presentations in the ongoing series Ulysses S. Grant, Bicentennial Moments, wherein General Grant looks at a person, place, or event in the Civil War for reflection and observation. Permission to copy and distribute is given and indeed encouraged. Remember, you are the future of our past. And now, December 18th, 1865. Report to President Johnson after my inspection tour of the South. In November, President Johnson asked me to go on an inspection tour of the South areas laid in rebellion to ascertain the attitude and status of those states and the people, and to report back to him upon my return. This is my report. To Andrew Johnson, Washington, D.C., December 18th, 1865. His Excellency Andrew Johnson, President of the United States. Sir, in reply to your note of the 16th instant, requesting a report from me, giving such information as I may be possessed of, coming within the scope of the inquiries made by the Senate of the United States in their resolution of the 12th instant, I have the honor to submit the following. With your approval, and also that of the Honorable Secretary of War, I left Washington City on the 27th of last month for the purpose of making a tour of inspection through some of the southern states, or states lately in rebellion, and to see what changes were necessary to be made in the disposition of the military forces of the country, how these forces could be reduced and expenses curtailed, etc., and to learn as far as possible the feelings and intentions of the citizens of these states toward the general government. The state of Virginia being so accessible to Washington City, information from this quarter therefore being readily obtained, I hastened through the state without conversing or meeting with any of its citizens. In Raleigh, North Carolina, I spent 1 day. In Charleston, South Carolina, 2 days. Savannah and Augusta, Georgia, each 1 day. Both in traveling and whilst stopping, I saw much and conversed freely with the citizens of these states, as well as with officers of the Army who have been stationed among them. The following are the conclusions come to by me. I am satisfied that the mass of thinking men of the South accept the present situation of affairs in good faith. The questions which have heretofore divided the sentiment of the people of the two sections, slavery and states' rights, or the right of a state to secede from the Union, they regard as having been settled forever by the highest tribunal, arms, that man can resort to. I was pleased to learn from the leading men whom I met that they not only accepted the decision arrived at as final, but that now that the smoke of battle has cleared away and time has been given for reflection, that this decision has been a fortunate one for the whole country, they receiving like benefits from it with those who oppose them on the field and in council. 4 years of war, during which law was executed only at the point of the bayonet, throughout the states in rebellion, has left the people possibly in a condition not to yield that ready obedience to civil authority that the American people have generally been in the habit of yielding. This would render the presence of small garrison throughout the states necessary until such time as labor returns to its proper channel and civil authority is fully established. I did not meet anyone, either those holding a place under the government or citizens of the southern states, who think it practicable to withdraw the military force from the South at present. The white and the black mutually require the protection of the general government. There is such a universal acquiescence in the authority of the general government throughout the portions of the country visited by me that the mere presence of a military force without regard to numbers and economy requires that the force kept in the interior where there are many freedmen elsewhere in the southern states than at forts upon the seacoast no force is necessary, should all be white troops. The reasons for this are obvious without mentioning many of them. The presence of black troops, lately slaves, demoralizes labor both by their advice and furnishing in their camps a resort for the freedmen for long distances around. White troops generally excited no opposition, and therefore a small number of them can maintain order in a given district. Colored troops must be kept in sufficient bodies to defend themselves. It is not the thinking man who would use violence toward any class of troops sent among them by the general government, but the ignorant in some places might. And the late slave seems to be imbued with the idea that the property of his late master should by right belong to him, or at least should have no protection from the colored soldier. There is danger of collisions being brought on by such causes. My observations lead me to the conclusions that the citizens of the southern states are anxious to return to self-government within the Union as soon as possible, that whilst reconstructing they want and require protection from the government, that they are in earnest in wishing to do what they think is required by the government and not humiliating to them as citizens, and that if such a course was pointed out, they would pursue it in good faith. It is to be regretted that there cannot be a greater commingling at this time between the citizens of the two sections, and particularly of those entrusted with the lawmaking power. I did not give the operations of the Freedmen's Bureau that attention I would have done if more time had been at my disposal. Conversations on the subject, however, with officers connected with the Bureau, with military commanders, and with citizens lead me to think that in some of the states its affairs have not been conducted with good judgment or economy, and that the belief widely spread among the freed men of the southern states that the lands of their former owners would at least in part be divided among them has come from the agents of this Bureau. This belief is seriously interfering with the willingness of the freedmen to make contracts for the coming year. In some form, the Freedmen's Bureau is an absolute necessity until civil law is established and enforced, securing to the freedom or the freedmen their rights and full protection. At present, however, it is independent of the military establishment of the country and seems to be operated by the different agents of the Bureau according to their individual notions. Everywhere General Howard, the able head of the Bureau, made friends by the just and fair instructions and advice he gave. But the complaint in South Carolina was that when he left, things went back as before. Many, perhaps the majority of the agents of the Freedmen's Bureau, advised the freedmen that by their own industry they must expect to live. To this end, they endeavored to secure employment for them and to see that both contracting parties comply with their engagements. In some instances, I am sorry to say the freedman's mind does not seem to be disabused of the idea that a freedman has the right to live without the care or provision for the future. The effect of the belief in division of lands is idleness and accumulation in camps, towns, and cities. In such cases, I think it will be found that vice and disease will tend to their extermination or great reduction of the colored race. It cannot be expected that the opinions held by men at the South for years can be changed in a day, and therefore the freedmen require for a few years not only laws to protect them, but the fostering care of those who will give them good counsel and in whom they rely. The Freedmen's Bureau, being separated from the military establishment of the country, requires all the expense of a separate organization. One does not necessarily know what the other is doing, or what orders they are acting under. It seems to me that this could be corrected by regarding every officer on duty in the southern states as agents of the Freedmen's Bureau, and then have all orders from the head of the Bureau sent through department commanders. This would create a responsibility that would secure uniformity of action throughout the South, would ensure the orders and instructions from the head of the Bureau being carried out, and would relieve from duty and pay a large number of employees of the government. I have the honor to be very respectfully your obedient servant, U.S. Grant, Lieutenant General. I'm General Ulysses S. Grant, and this has been a Ulysses S. Grant Bicentennial Moment.